The massive Zephyrian dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, cast its shadow across 3 moons as it approached the human colony of New Aberdeen. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge, his 4 arms crossed behind his back, watching the primitive human settlements grow larger on the view screen. His silver carapace gleamed under the bridge lights, and his compound eyes reflected the tactical displays, showing overwhelming Zephyrian superiority. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking with excitement, "our sensors show minimal defensive capabilities. A few orbital platforms, some outdated missile batteries. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest escort vessels." Vextar's throat sac inflated with satisfaction. The humans had been a thorn in the Empire's side for exactly 47 standard cycles. When they first emerged from their backward little world, the Galactic Council had welcomed them with the usual diplomatic pleasantries. Most species took centuries to develop beyond basic space travel. Most species understood their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Humans were different. They had somehow managed to colonize 17 systems in less than half the time it took most civilizations to perfect interstellar navigation. Worse, they had started asking questions. Uncomfortable questions about the Empire's taxation policies, resource distribution, and the mysterious disappearances of smaller member species who got too independent. "Sir," the communications officer's voice interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission from the human colony. They're requesting negotiations." Vextar's laugh was a harsh, chittering sound. "Negotiations? Put them through. I want to hear this." The view screen flickered to show a middle-aged human woman in simple civilian clothes. She stood in what appeared to be a modest office, with children's drawings taped to the wall behind her. Her calm demeanor struck Vextar as either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. "I am Governor Sarah Chun of New Aberdeen Colony," she said. "I understand you have grievances with our expansion policies. We're prepared to discuss terms." "Terms?" Vextar moved closer to the screen. "You misunderstand your situation, human. You have violated Imperial Decree 847 Delta by establishing unauthorized colonies beyond your designated sectors. You have exactly 1 standard hour to evacuate your illegal settlements before we reduce them to ash." Governor Chin's expression didn't change. "With respect, Admiral, we've reviewed Imperial Decree 847 Delta. Our settlements are in unclaimed space, following all established colonization protocols. We've harmed no one and threatened no existing territories. The Empire decides what is claimed and unclaimed." Vextar snapped. "Your species has grown too bold, too independent. Today, we remind you of Rule 1. Rule 1. Chen asked, the Empire decides who lives, who dies, and who gets to reach for the stars. You've forgotten your place." He gestured to cut the transmission. "Begin the bombardment." The first wave of plasma bolts struck the colony's outer shields. They held for exactly 14 seconds before collapsing in cascading blue sparks. The orbital platforms returned fire with their primitive kinetic weapons, but the projectiles barely scratched the dreadnought's advanced armor. "Target the main settlement," Vextar ordered. "Leave 1 district intact so survivors can spread word of what happens to species that defy the Empire." As the weapons charged for the killing blow, Alert suddenly screamed across the bridge. The tactical officer's eyes went wide as new contacts appeared on his sensors. "Admiral, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Large vessels, unknown configuration." Vextar turned to see dozens of human ships materializing around his fleet. They were ugly things compared to the elegant curves of Zephyrian design, all angles and practical surfaces built for function rather than beauty. But there were so many of them. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence said the humans had no significant fleet assets in this sector." "Sir, we're being hailed by the lead vessel." On screen, the face that appeared was weathered and scarred, belonging to a human male with steel-gray hair and eyes like chips of ice. He wore a military uniform that Vextar didn't recognize, with insignia that suggested high rank. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Coalition." You're ordered to cease all hostile actions against New Aberdeen Colony immediately. Vexstar's throat sack deflated in surprise. Terran Defense Coalition? Our intelligence reports indicated no such organization. Webb's smile was cold. Your intelligence reports are about 6 months out of date. You see, Admiral, when you started making threats against human colonies, some of us decided to prepare for this conversation. You dare threaten a Zephyrian fleet with those flying scrap heaps? I'm not threatening anyone, Webb said calmly. I'm informing you that you have 5 minutes to withdraw from this system before we enforce the withdrawal ourselves. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Do you have any idea what you're facing? The Eternal Dominion alone masses more than your entire ragtag fleet. Our weapons can crack moons. Our shields have never been penetrated by any known technology. That's interesting intel, Webb replied. Thank you for sharing it. Something in the human's tone made Vexstar's primary stomach clench with unease. He quickly ran the tactical numbers. 47 human vessels against his 12-ship battle group. The humans had numbers, but the Empire had 3,000 years of military supremacy and technology that had conquered half the galaxy. Tactical, he snapped, identify the human fleet composition. Scanning now, sir. It appears to be a mix of configurations. Some appear to be converted cargo haulers with bolt-on weapon systems. Others are. The officer paused, confusion clear in his voice. Sir, I'm reading some energy signatures I don't recognize. Admiral Webb. Vextar addressed the screen again. You have 30 seconds to begin your retreat, or I will demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire rules the stars. Webb glanced at something off-screen, then back at Vextar. I'm afraid I can't do that. You see, my orders are very specific. Any Imperial force that threatens human civilians gets to participate in a field test of our new defensive technologies. Field test. Vextar's voice rose. You would stake your entire species on untested weapons. Oh, they've been tested, Webb said. Just not in actual combat. We've been very careful about that. The Emperor's forces have a reputation for brutality, and we wanted to make sure our response would be proportionate. The transmission cut. Vextar stood frozen for a moment, then shook himself. These humans were bluffing. They had to be. No species developed meaningful military technology in mere decades. It took centuries of research, centuries of testing, centuries of gradual improvement. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, engage the human vessels. Show them the price of defying the Empire. The Zephyrian warships opened fire with coordinated precision. Lance beams that could slice through asteroid fields reached out toward the human fleet. Plasma torpedoes that could vaporize city blocks streaked through space in perfect formation. The humans scattered. Their formation broke apart like a school of fish avoiding a predator, individual ships diving, and weaving through the deadly barrage with maneuvers that should have turned their crews into paste from the acceleration. A few lance beams connected, striking human vessels that simply absorbed the energy and kept flying. What? Vextar stared at the tactical display. Report. Sir, their ships are using some kind of ablative armor. Our lance beams are being diffused across their hull surfaces. And, sir, the tactical officer's voice cracked. They're moving at accelerations that should be impossible for organic crews to survive. The human ships completed their evasive maneuvers and began their attack run. What happened next would be burned into Vextar's memory for the rest of his life. The humans didn't use energy weapons or plasma torpedoes. Instead, they fired simple kinetic projectiles, chunks of metal accelerated to impossible velocities. But these weren't random shots. Every projectile had been calculated with mathematical precision to arrive at specific points in space at specific times. The Vigilant Spear, Vexstar's escort destroyer, took 17 hits in the span of 2 seconds. The projectiles punched through its shields like they weren't there, through its armor like it was paper, through its hull like it was mist. The proud warship simply came apart, its structural integrity overwhelmed by physics. Impossible, Vextar vi spirit. Their targeting computers would need to calculate millions of variables in real time. The processing power alone. 2 more Zephyrian ships died in the next 5 seconds. The humans moved like they could see the future, positioning themselves exactly where they needed to be to deliver killing shots while avoiding return fire. Their formations flowed like water around the Imperial vessels, always striking from unexpected angles. "Admiral," his communications officer called out. "Admiral Webb is hailing us again." On screen, Webb appeared again, his expression unchanged. Behind him, Vextar could see other humans working at control stations with calm efficiency. "Admiral Vextar, I'm going to explain something to you that your empire seems to have forgotten. Every species in this galaxy has had to learn the same lesson eventually. Would you like to hear it?" Vextar found his voice. "What lesson?" "Never underestimate humans when their children are threatened." Webb leaned forward slightly. "You aimed weapons at a colony full of families. You threatened to kill children to make a political point. That was your first mistake." Another Zephyrian ship exploded in the background of the transmission. "Your second mistake was assuming we hadn't prepared for this day. You see, Admiral, while your empire was busy convincing itself of its own superiority, human engineers were solving problems. Human tacticians were studying your strategies. Human mothers and fathers were asking themselves what they would do if someone threatened their children." The tactical display now showed only 6 Zephyrian ships remaining. The human fleet had lost nothing. "Your third mistake," Webb continued, "was forgetting Rule 1. You got so used to enforcing it on others that you forgot it applies to everyone." "What are you talking about?" Vextar demanded. "Rule 1 isn't about the Empire deciding who lives and dies," Webb said quietly. "Rule 1 is that nobody gets to threaten our children and walk away. Not pirates, not raiders, not empires." The remaining Zephyrian escorts died in a synchronized burst of kinetic fire. Only the Eternal Dominion remained, surrounded by 47 human ships that had just dismantled his battle group, like it was a training exercise. "This is impossible," Vextar said. "No species develops this level of tactical coordination in such a short time. No species builds fleets like this without the Empire knowing about it." Webb's smile was grim. "You're right. We didn't develop it. We already had it. You see, Admiral, your Empire made one crucial error in your intelligence assessment. You assumed humans were a young species because we only recently achieved interstellar travel. You assumed we were primitive because our technology looked different from yours." The human admiral paused to let that sink in. "But you never asked why a species with our level of tactical coordination and weapons technology took so long to leave our home system. You never wondered what we might have been fighting during all those centuries before we reached the stars." Vextar felt his secondary hearts skip beats. "What do you mean?" "We mean, Admiral, that Earth is what the galactic community politely calls a death world. And the things we had to fight to survive, they were a lot more dangerous than your empire." The transmission ended, leaving Vextar alone with his thoughts and the tactical display showing his complete defeat. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would never come. Because for the first time in 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, the Zephyrian Admiral was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey. The human ships maintained their positions, weapons locked onto the Eternal Dominion, waiting. On New Aberdeen, families were gathering their children and looking up at the stars where their future was being decided. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Galactic Empire was about to learn that some rules apply to everyone, even emperors. Admiral Vextar stood in the wreckage of his certainty, watching the tactical display that showed his fleet reduced to a single ship surrounded by an impossible human force. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion had fallen silent except for the soft hum of life support and the occasional nervous click of mandibles from his crew. "Sir," his communications officer whispered, "Admiral Webb is requesting a private channel." Vextar straightened his carapace. He was still an Imperial Admiral, even if his understanding of the galaxy had just been shattered. "Put him through." Webb's face appeared on a smaller screen, his expression serious but not hostile. "Admiral Vextar, I'm going to make you an offer. One professional soldier to another." "I'm listening." Your ship is intact, and your crew is alive. I'm willing to let you leave this system with both of those things still true. But first, you're going to listen to a story, and then you're going to take a message back to your empire. Vextares sectweets. What story? The story of why humans fight the way we do. The story of why your empire's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating our technology or our numbers. It was underestimating what we're willing to do to protect our own. Webb gestured to someone off-screen, and the image shifted to show a holographic display of Earth. But this wasn't the blue marble that most galactic databases showed. This was Earth as it had been for most of human history, a world under constant siege. 87 million years ago, Webb began, a species called the Devourers seeded our world with hunting packs. They were supposed to return in a few million years to harvest whatever intelligent life had evolved. Instead, they found us. The hologram shifted to show creatures that made Vextar's primary spine shiver. Massive predators with diamond-hard claws and electromagnetic senses that could track prey across continents. Pack hunters that communicated through quantum entanglement and never stopped hunting once they found a trail. The Devourers had done this on thousands of worlds, Webb continued. But Earth was different. The hunting packs didn't just shape human evolution. They shaped human thinking. For millions of years, Admiral, my species didn't just fight for survival. We fought impossible odds and won. The display showed early humans using tools, fire, and coordination to bring down creatures 10 times their size. It showed them building underground cities to hide from aerial predators. It showed them developing technologies not to explore the stars, but to fight monsters that had no natural enemies. We learned to think like prey that could become predators. We learned to turn disadvantage into advantage. We learned that sometimes the only way to win is to be more ruthless than your enemy believes possible. Vextar found his voice. The Devourers, what happened to them? Webb's smile was winter cold. They came back 90,000 years ago to collect their harvest. We were waiting for them. All of human civilization had spent every generation for millions of years preparing for that moment. When their harvest ships entered our atmosphere, we didn't negotiate. We didn't surrender. We turned their own hunting packs against them and drove them back to whatever hole they crawled out of. The holographic display showed massive battles in Earth's skies, human fighters using technology that looked impossibly advanced for a species that hadn't achieved interstellar travel. Vextar watched Devourer ships, vessels that should have been unstoppable, torn apart by coordinated human tactics. That's when we learned the most important lesson in our history, Webb said. It doesn't matter how big your enemy is, how advanced their technology is, or how many victories they've won before. If you threaten what humans love, we'll find a way to kill you. The display shifted to show more recent human history. Wars fought with increasing sophistication, but always with the same underlying principle, total commitment to protecting human civilization. We didn't develop interstellar travel quickly because we weren't ready, Webb explained. We took our time because we wanted to be sure. We wanted to understand the galactic community before we entered it. We wanted to know who might be a threat to our families. Vextar's secondary stomachs clenched. You've been watching us. For decades. Long-range sensors, deep space observation posts, intelligence networks. We knew about the Empire's expansion patterns, their taxation policies, their habit of making examples out of independent species. We knew this confrontation was inevitable. The hologram now showed human shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, manufacturing facilities built into dead moons, training centers where human soldiers practiced tactics against simulated Imperial fleets. The scale of preparation was staggering. Every human colony is protected by at least one defensive fleet, Webb said. Every human ship is designed specifically to counter Imperial technology. Every human soldier has trained against scenarios exactly like this one. But your weapons? Vextar struggled to understand. Simple kinetic projectiles. Why not use energy weapons like every other advanced species? Because we studied your defensive systems. Your shields are designed to deflect or absorb energy. They're not designed for physical impacts at relativistic speeds. We didn't use the most advanced weapons, Admiral. We used the most effective ones. The tactical implications hit Vextar like a plasma bolt. Humans hadn't just developed superior weapons. They had developed weapons specifically designed to kill Zephyrians. They had studied Imperial technology and found its weaknesses. This fleet, Vextar said slowly. How many others like it do you have? That's classified. But I can tell you this. What you've seen today is our defensive capability. The ships and tactics designed to protect our colonies and families. You haven't seen our offensive capability. Webb leaned back in his chair. The Empire has a choice to make, Admiral. You can continue your expansion policies and find out what humans do when we stop playing defense. Or you can accept that the galaxy just got a new player and that player is not interested in being bullied. The Emperor will never accept these terms, Vextar said. The Empire has ruled for 3,000 years. We have fleets that could scorch entire systems. Yes, you do, Webb agreed. And we've accounted for that in our planning. Tell me, Admiral, how many systems can the Empire afford to lose before it stops being an empire? The question hung in the air like a curse. Vextar knew the answer. The Empire's strength came from the tribute and resources of its member systems. Lose too many, and the whole structure would collapse. You would fight a war that could destroy the galaxy, Vextar said. No, I admitted. We would fight a war that would destroy anyone who threatens our children. The rest of the galaxy is welcome to live in peace. In fact, we're counting on it. Webb gestured again, and the display changed to show peaceful human colonies, trade routes, and construction projects. We didn't come to the stars to conquer anyone. We came to build new homes for our families. We're prepared to share space with anyone who can respect that simple goal. And if they can't, then they learn what the Devourers learned. Some species are too dangerous to leave alive. The transmission shifted to show the bridge of the human flagship. Vextar could see the crew working with calm efficiency, monitoring displays that tracked not just the current battle, but dozens of other locations throughout the galaxy. The scope of human preparation was becoming clear. We've been watching Imperial fleets throughout your territory, Webb said casually. We know where your supply lines are, where your shipyards are located, which systems are critical to your economic structure. If this turns into a shooting war, we won't be fighting for territory. We'll be fighting for survival. And humans who are fighting for survival don't follow the rules of civilized warfare. Vextar felt his carapace go cold. You're talking about total war. I'm talking about extinction-level tactics. The kind of warfare humans developed fighting creatures that wanted to eat our entire species. Webb's voice remained calm, but his eyes were ice. The Empire has had 3,000 years to convince itself that it's the apex predator in this galaxy. But you've never faced a species that evolved to kill apex predators. The display showed human shipyard again, but now Vextar could see what he had missed before. The production capacity wasn't just large. It was designed for exponential expansion. Automated systems that could build factories that could build factories. Resource extraction operations that could strip entire asteroid belts and convert them into warships. How long? Vextar asked. How long what? How long have you been preparing for war with us? Webb considered the question. From the moment we detected your first expansion fleet entering human space. About 47 years ago. 47 years. Vextar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. That was longer than most Zephyrian military careers. An entire human generation had grown up knowing that this confrontation was coming. Every human child learns basic tactics in school, Webb continued. Every human colony has emergency protocols for Imperial contact. Every human research project includes military applications assessment. We didn't just prepare for this war, Admiral. We restructured our entire civilization around it. The scope of it was mind-numbing. An entire species united in purpose, working for decades toward a single goal, being ready for the day the Empire threatened their families. But why reveal this now? Vextar asked. You could have let us attack first, claimed self-defense. Because dead children don't care about legal justifications, Webb said simply. New Aberdeen has families. Real people with hopes and dreams, and children want to grow up. We revealed our capabilities now because stopping you before you hurt anyone was more important than maintaining strategic surprise. It was such a fundamentally human approach that Vextar almost understood it. Most species would have used the strategic advantage. Most species would have let the enemy attack first to justify retaliation. Humans had thrown away that advantage to save lives. You're asking me to return to the Emperor and tell him that his 3,000-year empire is being challenged by a species that's been space-capable for less than a century. I'm asking you to return to the Emperor and tell him that his empire has a choice. Coexist with humans, or discover how creative we can get when someone threatens our families. Webb stood up, and Vextar could see the determination in his posture. This wasn't bluster or empty threats. This was a statement of absolute fact delivered by someone who had spent decades preparing to make it. Your hyperspace engines are undamaged, Webb said. You have safe passage out of this system. But, Admiral, when you brief the Emperor on what happened here, make sure he understands one thing. What? This was us being polite. The transmission cut, leaving Vextar alone with his shattered assumptions and the weight of a message that would change the galaxy forever. Around him, his crew waited for orders, but he knew there was only one order he could give. It was time to go home and tell an empire that had never known defeat that it had just met its match. The Imperial throne room on Zephyr Prime had witnessed 3,000 years of conquered species kneeling before the Emperor's crystalline seat. Today, for the first time in living memory, it witnessed something else, an admiral delivering news of defeat. Emperor Kethval the Eternal sat motionless as Vextar finished his report. The massive ruler's 4 arms remained folded, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays showing the destruction of the Imperial Task Force. Around the throne, the High Council of Species representatives watched in stunned silence. "Show me again," the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber like distant thunder. The hologram replayed the battle in merciless detail. 12 Imperial warships reduced to scrap metal in less than 10 minutes by human vessels that moved like living things and struck with mathematical precision. The council members shifted nervously as they watched their supposedly invincible fleet torn apart by kinetic weapons that should have been obsolete. "These humans," Kethval said slowly. "You claim they possess 47 such fleets?" Admiral Webb indicated that what we faced was their defensive capability only, Your Magnificence. Their offensive capabilities remain unknown. General Thakmore, the Empire's chief military strategist, leaned forward. Defensive fleets of that size and capability would require industrial infrastructure beyond anything in our intelligence files. A single ship like those we observed would take our best shipyards 6 months to construct. Yet the humans apparently built 47 fleets worth of them, Vextar said. And based on what I observed, they're designed specifically to counter our technology. Our shields, our armor, our weapons systems, they have solutions for all of it. Counselor Vesandra of the hegemony species raised a tentacle. Your Magnificence, perhaps negotiation would be the wiser course. The humans made no territorial demands. They seemed content with their existing colonies. The Emperor's throat sac inflated dangerously. The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with upstart species who refuse to acknowledge our authority. With respect, Your Magnificence, Vextar said carefully, these are not typical upstarts. Admiral Webb indicated that humanity has been preparing for conflict with us for 47 years. An entire generation of humans has grown up expecting this war. Then, we will give them the war they expect, General Thakmore declared. The Empire has faced rebellions before. We have always crushed them. Have any of those rebellions possessed the capability to destroy Imperial dreadnoughts with primitive kinetic weapons? Vextar asked. The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species in the Council had seen the holographic recording. Every species knew that their own fleets used similar technology to what the humans had just defeated. Emperor Kethval stood, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Admiral Vextar, you will prepare a full tactical analysis of these human capabilities. General Thakmor, you will begin mobilization of Battlefleet Omega. If the humans want to test themselves against the Empire's full might, we will oblige them. Your Magnificence, a new voice interrupted. Ambassador Quintel of the Synthesis Collective stepped forward, his crystalline form chiming softly. Perhaps we should consider the broader implications of this conflict. Speak. The humans demonstrated selective targeting and proportional response. They could have destroyed Admiral Vextar's ship, but chose not to. This suggests they understand diplomacy, even while demonstrating military superiority. They demonstrated nothing but treacherous. They demonstrated, Quintel continued firmly, that they can destroy Imperial fleets while showing restraint toward Imperial personnel. That level of tactical control is unprecedented. The Emperor's compound eyes fixed on the ambassador. You suggest we show weakness before a species that openly defies Imperial authority? I suggest we consider what Imperial authority means if we lack the military capability to enforce it. The words struck the chamber like a physical blow. For 3 millennia, Imperial authority had been backed by overwhelming force. No species had ever seriously challenged that power, because no species had possessed the capability to do so. Until now. Vextar cleared his throat. Your Magnificence, Admiral Webb, made a specific point about human military doctrine. He indicated that what we faced was their response to defensive situations. He also suggested that their offensive capabilities would be significantly more aggressive, meaning that the Empire might be facing an enemy that grows more dangerous the harder we press them. General Thakmor's mandibles clicked dismissively. Impossible. No species can maintain increasing military capability under sustained assault. Logistics alone, General, Vextar interrupted. The humans have been space-capable for less than a century, yet they've created military technology specifically designed to defeat us. Their logistics capabilities may not follow conventional patterns. The Emperor began pacing, his massive steps echoing through the chamber. Are you suggesting that the Zephyrian Empire, masters of half the galaxy, should retreat before a species that was discovering fire when our ancestors were building star cruisers? I'm suggesting that perhaps age and experience aren't always advantages in warfare. The words came from an unexpected source, science advisor Melkoth, an ancient Zephyrian whose research had contributed to many Imperial technologies. Every head in the chamber turned toward the elderly scientist. Emplin Ketwal Tselmandet. Melkoth shuffled forward, consulting a data tablet. I've been analyzing the tactical recordings from Admiral Vextar's encounter. The human weapons systems show signs of recent development, but their tactical doctrine demonstrates something far more concerning, which is evolutionary advantage, Your Magnificence. The humans didn't develop their military capabilities in a peaceful environment like most species. According to their own statements, they evolved under constant predation pressure. Their entire civilization has been shaped by the necessity of fighting superior enemies. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Melkoth continued, their approach to warfare shows signs of what xenobiologists call pack-hunting intelligence. They don't think like individual warriors or even coordinated units. They think like a single organism with multiple components. That's impossible, General Thakmor protested. No species can achieve that level of coordination across multiple vessels. No species that evolved in a safe environment, Melkoth corrected. But a species that spent millions of years hunting creatures larger and more dangerous than themselves, such a species might develop very different capabilities. Emperor Kethval stopped pacing. You're saying they're not just technologically advanced. You're saying they're evolutionarily adapted for warfare. I'm saying they're evolutionarily adapted for winning against superior enemies. There's a significant difference. The distinction hit the chamber like a shockwave. The Empire had always faced enemies who fought like civilized beings, with formations, strategies, and predictable tactical doctrines. They had never faced an enemy that thought like a predator species. Your Magnificence, Counselor Vesindra said quietly. Perhaps we should consider Ambassador Quintel's suggestion. If negotiation is possible, the Empire does not negotiate from weakness. Then perhaps we should negotiate from strength, a new voice said. Every head turned to see Admiral Zekthar, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Navy, entering the chamber. The old warrior moved slowly but with unmistakable authority. Admiral, the Emperor said, you've reviewed the tactical data. I have, and I've reached some disturbing conclusions. Zekthar approached the throne, his scarred carapace telling the story of a dozen victorious campaigns. The humans didn't just defeat Admiral Vextar's task force. They did it while revealing as little as possible about their true capabilities. Explain. They used the minimum force necessary to achieve their objectives. They demonstrated superior technology without revealing the extent of that superiority. They achieved total tactical victory while maintaining the option for peaceful resolution. Zekthar's compound eyes met the Emperor's. Your Magnificence, in 50 years of military service, I have never seen such disciplined application of force. You're saying they held back? I'm saying they fought exactly as much as they needed to, and no more. That level of tactical restraint requires either supreme confidence or supreme capability. Possibly both. General Thakmore's throat sack-deflated. What are you recommending, Admiral? I'm recommending that we test their actual capabilities before committing the Empire to a war we might not be able to win. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. An Imperial Admiral, veteran of countless campaigns, was suggesting that the Empire might face defeat. How? Emperor Kethval asked quietly. Send a probe fleet. Something substantial enough to provoke a real response, but small enough that we can afford to lose it. See what the humans do when they stop being polite. And if they destroy the probe fleet, then we'll know we're facing an enemy that can destroy Imperial forces at will, and we can plan accordingly. And if they don't, then we'll know they're still trying to avoid a full war, and we can decide whether to give them one. The Emperor stared at the tactical displays showing the wreckage of Vextar's task force. 3,000 years of unchallenged dominance, ended by a species that most galactic databases still listed as recently space-capable. Very well. Admiral Zekthar, you will personally command a probe force. 12 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. You will engage the human fleet at... He paused, consulting the star charts. The Kepler 442 system, their newest colony. Your Magnificence, Vextar said. Admiral Webb specifically warned that this was them being polite. A direct attack on another human colony might provoke exactly the response we're trying to avoid. Then, we'll discover what humans do when they stop being polite, the Emperor said grimly. And we'll discover whether the Zephyrian Empire still rules the stars, or whether it's time for someone else to try. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter as the implications became clear. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Empire was preparing for a war where defeat was possible. Admiral Zekthar saluted and turned to leave, but the Emperor's voice stopped him. Admiral, when you engage the humans, remember that you're not just fighting for the Empire. You're fighting to determine whether the age of Zephyrian dominance continues, or whether the galaxy has found new masters. Zekthar's compound eyes glittered. Understood, Your Magnificence. Though I should point out, based on what I've seen, the humans don't seem interested in being masters of anyone. They just seem interested in being left alone, which, Emperor Kethval said softly, may make them the most dangerous enemy we've ever faced. The throne room fell silent as the Empire's leadership contemplated a future where human children played safely on distant worlds while Zephyrian dreadnoughts burned in the void between stars. It was a future none of them had imagined possible. It was also a future that was now less than a week away.